Anna Seawald, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. And on this podcast, I explore how you can connect to your authentic self, practice radical self-care, and raise emotionally healthy children. Let's break the cycle of generational trauma for a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. Today, what does healing from trauma really mean? My guest today is Jimanekia Eborn. She's a queer sexual assault and trauma expert, trauma media consultant, and comprehensive sex educator. She has worked in the mental health for the past 16 years in sex education and sexual trauma support. Jimanekia is the founder of Tending the Garden, a nonprofit for sexual assault survivors of different marginalized identities, and co-founder of Sintima, bringing increased representation to the field of intimacy coordination in the film industry. She's also the host of the Trauma Queen podcast. Content warning: this episode includes mentions of rape and sexual assault, but there are no graphic descriptions. In this conversation, we talk about what healing from trauma entails. Certain words have become popular in our culture. Words like trauma, inner child, healing, gaslighting, and there is no shortage of gurus and coaches online. If you listen to those healers and teachers, everybody's a narcissist, you are being gaslit, you need to set boundaries, and your inner child needs healing. And of course, everybody is on a healing journey. And don't get me started with the word trauma itself. People use that word so casually these days to describe ordinary negative and unpleasant experiences. We become so obsessed with healing that we strictly follow protocols and push ourselves hard to the point of neglecting our normal lives. We have gone too far. But I digress. In today's episode, we discuss the crucial role of awareness in healing trauma, the benefits of silent retreats, and the importance of building a support system, and how healing looks differently for different people. One of my favorite moments is towards the end when Jimanekia shares a moving story about her grandmother. If you enjoyed this episode, I also recommend checking out episode 345 with Dr. Lisa Rankin, Unraveling the Mysteries of Healing. It's a fantastic episode. I specifically remember the topic of spiritual bypassing. It's a valuable listen. So please enjoy, and thank you for listening. Welcome, Jimanekia, to the podcast, the Trauma Queen. I love that.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start by asking you your thoughts on the notion of healing. Where do you stand on this idea of healing?
Yeah, I think the way that I look at healing, we're already going to start fun. I think that the way that I look at healing is a bit different than other people. I think that a lot of people put healing on this pedestal, which makes it really hard for people to get to, versus if we just focus on navigation versus trying to reach this pinnacle thing, I think people would be able to get what they need versus comparing to what other people are doing. And so I'm always like, how do we get this healing off this pedestal and put it like within us? How do we navigate it every day? Because people come to me and be like, I want to be healed. And I'm like, that's great. I love that. But that's not like the goal. And also healing, quote unquote, looks different to everyone. And that it is a time thing. There is no magical pill that we can all take and just be, whatever we need to be. I wish that'd be so lovely. I would sell them. I wouldn't even sell them. I'd give them out every day, but it's not real. And so I think if we allow ourselves to just exist, we will actually figure out how to use the tools and actually find the tools that we need for ourselves.
Yeah, finding the tools and using and navigating. That's more normal language. How did this healing become, do you think? Like we put it on a pedestal. People talk about my healing journey. It's a thing. And if you're not on it, you're failing at life. Or even a person who is on a healing journey, they throw themselves at different things, try different modalities. I feel like then they sort of lose sight of what is it that they are even here to do, right? So can you speak about that? And yeah, and then I'll ask you another one.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things out there, and we are in the age of social media, especially TikTok, which is helpful. And also, I think it's pretty dangerous. Anyone with a phone can get on there and, repeat anything they've heard or they made up, and people just attach onto it. And so oftentimes I talk to people and they're like, well, I'm doing yoga, I'm stretching, I'm on this diet, I'm taking these pills. And I'm like, so what do you know is working? And they're like, what? And I'm like, you're doing so many things. How do you know if these things are actually working for you if you're doing 20 things at one time? And so for me, when I'm looking at this and working with individuals, being able to focus on one tool, give it like 30 days. See if that works. If it doesn't, then do another. I think that within society right now, coming out of, well, we're still very much in COVID will stay here forever, as we know. But, the intensity of being in this original pandemic situation, we all went through this. What is life? Am I doing the right thing? We started thinking about all these things. And because we were isolated, all of our mental health struggles, all the traumas, all the things we tried to ignore were like tapping on our shoulders, like, hey, remember me? I'm still here. And so, because we had so much time, we were like, well, we might die in this pandemic because we didn't know. People were trying to throw everything at it. Again, you won't know what works if you don't allow it to work. And so I really, really implore people to enjoy the internet for what it is, but also please make sure people have credibility. Now, this is also going to be rocky for some people. Do I believe that everything in school is amazing and magical? No. Do I believe that everything in school was created for me? No. But I also know that there has been research and understanding. And just because you might be a survivor of trauma does not mean that you should also be trying to heal yourself so you can do this work for other people. And I think that that's also where the danger is with the internet and the TikToks and the trauma dumping and all of these things. But to get back, because I get
Oh,
excited.
I know. I love
Um,
it. I love it.
I do believe that if we actually slowed down and figured out what works for us, we could navigate things a bit easier. And I think that we live in such a society that we put these visuals and ideas on a pedestal, like a goal. It's almost like a quote unquote something of like a celebrity, like, oh, did you see how well they healed? Did you see them shining? And it's like, is that real? Probably not. Because again, just because I'm having a great day, tomorrow might be a whole different day. And a lot of us, as survivors of whatever type of trauma you've navigated, have often learned how to wear, oh, I struggle with this word, masks, little face coverings. We wear these different shields. So we present in the way that oftentimes we think will allow us to fit in, feel normal versus where we actually are. And I think that's also harmful if we're just pretending, but not actually navigating what we need to.
I think people throw themselves at different modalities or concrete things because it's a more concrete thing that if I do, I may be healed, right? Versus healing also could mean sharing your story with someone or in a circle or self-reflection. Maybe let's talk about what does healing mean actually, right? What do we say when we say healing from trauma? Because I feel like people have this understanding that it's doing X, Y, and Z protocols, doing breath work and this and this. And of course, it becomes very popularized by social media, like you said, those TikTok gurus, and everybody has a journey and they healed and now they are illuminating others. And it's a very tricky and dangerous time. And people can have doubts. Am I doing this right? But what goes under this umbrella healing? What do you consider healing? As someone who, well, maybe you can say about your trauma first. What kinds of traumas briefly, you went through, because you have a very unique story. And, your mom was killed in front of you when you were very little. Do you start with that as your trauma history, or do you go right into your sexual assault, rape story? Like, how do you start your trauma? Where did it begin?
I think trauma starts in the womb for a lot of us, if we're just going to keep it honest. Right? Because of the things that our mothers go through and it transfers onto us. Again, this is why I don't think that none of us have never experienced trauma. If she bumps into something while carrying you, that'd be a little traumatic. We don't know. And when I state these stories, yes, I do start with my mother's murder. Do I remember these things? Maybe partially, maybe not. I don't know. But that energy will always be within me. What do I have more conversations about? My sexual assault, because I am old enough to articulate some understanding and be present. But I was also, what I will say is I will say that I've been raped once, but I've been sexually assaulted more times than I can account for because I'm in this body. And so when you ask me what does healing look like, I say, which day is it? Because for me, I think this is an ever evolving thing. Because as we continue to expand ourselves, we might go, oh, I didn't know this might not be the way that feels good for me. It was just the way that I was doing it. And so oftentimes when I reflect back on myself, it's the way that I respond to things. Maybe those things might have triggered me before. Maybe I would have shut down before. Now it's like, okay, I know that I can remove myself from this situation. Now I can do some breathing exercises, or, I reach out to my support systems and we talk through it. I set a therapy session. Maybe I shake it out. Maybe I'm a physical release kind of day. And so the healing, again, there is no one way that it can look because, yes, I have been sexually assaulted. Yes, I have seen lots of death. I have worked in mental health. I've been for many years. I have been in mental health for a decade, working hands-on in facilities. Those are also pretty traumatic. You know, there's different things that will happen over time to us that we will need different things for. And so I do kind of shy away from the whole conversation of like, what does healing look like? I'm like, I don't know. What do you need? How does your body feel? So I also like to look at Eastern and Western medicine. I think that Western medicine is very numbing. I think we will give you a pill and say, okay, you're better now versus Eastern medicine is like, okay, but what caused it? What's the root of this? How do we slowly massage that and work through that? That's the way that I like to look at it. So when we soften it, when it comes up again, we can face it and go, I remember this. I know this is not something that is real in this moment. I can take space from this. I know that this is in the past and that wasn't my fault. Those are the small things that I think looks like quote unquote healing, where you can look at the thing in the face and go, you don't have control anymore. I now get the voice. I now can say, this isn't real. I can walk away. That boogeyman isn't as strong or heavy. And I think there's also the awareness changes, the awareness of your surroundings, awareness of self. It's an ever evolving thing. I'm 37 now. I was raped at 21. If you had this conversation with me at 28, it would be a whole different conversation. When you have this conversation with me at 39, it will be a whole different conversation because I also think that the experiences that we continue to have can also allow us to navigate healing.
Wow, yeah, this is very rich what you're saying. And I wrote it as you were speaking the word awareness. And I said, how did you get there? Right? How does one get to the awareness part? Because if you're not aware of your triggers, of certain patterns and things, then you can live, you can repeat and be stuck, right? Awareness is a key step, like you mentioned it as well. How did you get to the awareness of things? The awareness that shed light to things or changed things, right? What did you become aware of first?
Yeah. So because the sexual assault was very prevalent to me and was really just having me spiral. So most people always say, go find a therapist. And I don't say that that's wrong, but I say there's also other things that someone might need. So I went spiritual first. I needed to get back into my body. I needed to understand the focal point of the voices in my head. And so I learned how to meditate. I learned how to sit still. I learned how to navigate what was happening in my body. And I did that in two ways. The first way I did it was I found a spiritual person. And it's like one of those things where you're like, wait, what? It was this like psychic corner that has existed in my world forever. And I was like, I'm just going to go on one day. And I worked with this person for like a year. And that felt really good for me. And then I found a therapist, which let's have that conversation. All therapists are not good therapists.
Agreed. Agreed.
I know.
I
I know.
know.
People go, wait, what? No, they're not. This is where I remind you that anybody can do a different job if they can pass a test. Again, we can all wear masks. And some therapists get into this work to process their own trauma, and that is not okay. That is harmful. So I did go to school for marriage and family therapy. I am not a licensed marriage and family therapist because of the work that I've chosen to do. My degree is in health psychology because I look at us as whole beings. Medical things look at bodies. Psychology looks at brains and feelings. But why are we separating these things when we are whole beings? And so that is why I wanted to focus on this work. The third thing that I did, and this is also tricky and not for everyone. Again, we're just speaking about me. I did 10-day silent retreats. I've done 2 Vipassana retreats and I'm thinking about doing another one at different points in my life. The last one I did like 2 years ago. The first one I did, I was 30. I was 30. It was the most amazing thing I've ever done and the hardest thing because you truly have to just sit. There is no reading, there is no writing, there is no talking. You are forced to sit with yourself and navigate. Like when the process comes up, oftentimes we kind of shun it away. We try to get busy. We try to distract because we don't want to deal with it. You don't have a choice there. Again, that is not for everyone, but that is what worked for me. And also the body scans, learning how to sit within my body was really helpful. I will say for a lot of folks, being able to figure out what triggers are and awareness is working with someone else. Having a therapist, having a trauma specialist. I call myself a trauma companion. Having a trauma companion. And the reason I say that, people are like, oh, you could be a coach and all these things. And I said, no, because here's the difference. A coach leads you to the things that they think that you should be doing, while a companion walks beside you. We share and trade information and support back and forth versus me trying to direct you to a path that is not yours. And so I have worked with people that walked beside me. And so for me, that is how I also work with people because it makes sense to my brain. And if it doesn't make sense to your brain, get you a therapist, get you a group, join a support group, which is also really good. That allows us to go, oh shit. I didn't know that was a thing. When you hear these things also from other survivors, it can help bring those thoughts up. It can help feel quote unquote normalize and go, oh, this is because of this. And then we start to have more questions. I think questions are healthy. I think that is how we get to the root of a lot of things. We question situations, we question our thought process. I don't think that any of us should ever stop questioning because that's how we learn and grow.
What made you go to do a silent retreat at 30? Did you see it on TikTok? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, not, I wasn't doing the TikToks. I was just seeking something bigger than me and outside of me. And I was like, you know what I could do? Deal with some quiet. Like I was also feeling overwhelmed with work and life, and I just needed a hard reset. And I said, this feels like a hard reset. And also, it felt scary, but beneficial. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go do it. Of course, everyone in my life was like, are you serious? That sounds wild. I don't know. And I was like, this is so great that I trust myself. And so I did it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the scariest because you're face on with everything and you don't know how you're going to exist in that space. And silence is so powerful, yet we run from it. I run to it. I'm like, oh, quiet. And so it felt like something I needed at the time.
How did it look like? If you can give me a little bit more, the first day, the second, the third, the last day, Like what did you go through, the tsunamis and the tornadoes of your mind and body? Yeah, and how did you ground yourself? Did you need any help while you were there? I want to know a little more.
Sure. So with Vipassana retreats, one, I want to tell people that they are free. People go, wait, what? Thousands of dollars? No, it's free. You can look it up. Look up Vipassana.
Then where did you go?
They are all over the world. I chose to stay in California. So I'm not going to tell people exactly where I went because I want to keep those safe space for me. I don't need people popping up being
No,
weird.
no, I meant the state. Yeah, yeah, that's good enough. Yeah.
California. I wanted to be home in case I needed something. I wanted people to be near me. So that when you first get there, it's just like it's like a first day of school and you're at a new school and you're just like, I don't know what to do. So you have a moment of like, you get into your room, you check your stuff in, you give them your phone because there's no contact. There is no reading, there is no writing. Once you take your vow of silence, there's no reading, there's no writing, there's no talking. You have two people you can talk to, the group leader and the meditation leader. There's no looking people in the eye. They truly want you to emerge into yourself. So you take a vow of silence the first night, and then you wake up and then you start. So there is a mix of group meditation and solo meditation. So when you are in group meditation, the whole process is to teach you how to do Vipassana, which a third day is when you really do the Vipassana processing, which is really hard because you sit in one spot. And now my friends are like, are you breathing? And I'm like, yeah, because I have such stillness control now. Like I can sit in one spot and not move for an hour. And so you learn how to do that. And it looks like I'm just stuck. But in that moment, you're learning how to navigate and like research your body. You're like, is there any pain? Am I feeling any stress? If there is, let's spend a little time there. You learn that everything is temporary. And so when you ask, like, what does it look like? Every day is different. And you're not necessarily prompted. It's just every day something comes up. And like today, I'm like, oh, I'm going to think about family. I'm thinking about relationships. I'm thinking about friends. I'm thinking about my career. There's all these things that come up. And so at night, you do like your final meditation, and they play a video from the person that created the retreat. He kind of goes through like, here's probably what you're going through because he's done it so much. He's like, here's what you're going through today. And you're like, how does he know this? What? And it is all it for me, and I can't speak for others because I didn't speak to others until the end. For me, the through line like was very accurate each night of like, this might be like what you're navigating. Day two, you probably want to run out of here and go home. And you're like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I want to be free. Then you do the third day of that Vipassana, and it's so hard. And then the fourth day, you're just like, okay, I can do this. Like I learned how to navigate it. And they separate you between men and women. So it's also again to keep you focused. There is no like, ooh, no. You have like a hiking area, which is very low, just like a little walking trail, because they want you to keep your heart level very calm. It is very much about peace. You have a very delicious, because I like food, a very beautiful like vegetarian dinners. Like all your meals are vegetarian. It is also like it's cleansing your mind, body, and spirit, which I think is amazing. And also to know that everyone that works at these individual places, they're all volunteering their time. And as for me that works in mental health, finding someone that just wants to show up to allow you to be better. I think that is one of the most beautiful things because we should show up and support each other. And this also is something that I will say. I think sexual assault is a community issue. I think that we are taught certain ways in some individuals. I think that we can be taught to continuously learn boundaries, to learn consent. I think children should be started that very early. I think we should be learned about our bodies and not teaching girls that their vaginas should be called cookies because then they won't be able to identify if something happens to them. I think that when people do cause harm, we hold them accountable and stop pushing things under the rug. Like, I get passionate, I get mad. I do think that, going to retreats like this, it does force you to sit and expand your brain in a way that you're so busy, you don't have time. Like, I feel like in regular life, I'm so busy doing other things and taking care of other people. It's like, oh, a time to breathe. I want to take a shower. I want to go to bed. And so sitting with yourself is hard. But I do think that we have a lot of answers within us. We just also have to trust ourselves.
Thank you. What was like the main thing that you learned about yourself after that first retreat? Did it meet your expectations? Was it earth-shattering and enlightening? And number one, and number two, how did you integrate into your regular life? The contrast between that and that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do I think it was earth-shattering at the time? Parts of it. Do I think I had more after? Yes. Because when you come back into the quote unquote real world or like the functioning world, you're like, what the hell was everyone doing for 10 days? I was over here getting it together. And so you come back and it's like, you have to learn to back to readapt in ways that allow you to exist in this space, but you also don't want to lose the patience and the understanding of yourself because that is a gift that you worked hard for. And so it's, moving slower. I think moving slower has been really helpful for me, not necessarily responding quickly, taking a breath, giving it some time to not feel like you just have to respond to something just because. And it's like, give me a second. Let me return to that. And knowing that that's okay, that you can navigate things on your own time, I think has been really helpful. And that stillness is needed. I think stillness is needed. And some people are like, I can't sit still. I can't believe you did a silent retreat. I can't be quiet. You can do a lot of things that you have done that you thought you could never do.
True. Agree with that. Yes. It seems daunting at first, but
Sure.
yeah, so beautiful. I love that. What inspires you every day to get up and do this work? Because it's not easy work, right? It's not like you're a hairdresser, you're making people look beautiful every day, or a makeup artist, right? This is hard work. You deal with people's challenges and hear awful, horrific stories. What keeps you inspired and motivated every day?
Today, that question makes me really emotional. Every time, people ask me different times. It inspires me. The things that inspire me are the people that I get to see grow. Like for people that show up and they're like, I'm so broken, no one can understand me, or unfixable, that breaks my heart because I don't think any of us are unfixable. I do think some people have things and maybe they should be in prison for those things and that's where they need to be. But I think that a lot of the survivors have really swallowed these narratives that were never theirs. And so it inspires me that one, someone trusts me enough to like sit down and share maybe for the first time this deep, dark thing, or they trust that like I see them and they trust that they can share this thing out loud. You know, that is a privilege. That gets me out of bed every day. Getting messages like I also, one of the many jobs I have is I am a part of a mental health department for a professional wrestling company. If you know me, that is like my dream job, which is wild. But, getting to work with these individuals that use their bodies in traumatic ways and have like real life things happening to go, you allowed me to come to work today, to like go and do this wild thing, maybe get on fire. I don't know. Um, those kind of things help me to get out of bed every day, to know that I do get to add something to this world. And something my therapist told me years ago, she's like, the way that you navigate is so interesting. She said, you continuously learn and heal from the work that you get to do. You learn new tools and you question things. And I'm like, thank you. I hope I never stop doing that.
To conclude, I want you to highlight a few things, a few truths about healing for people to hear, especially people who are doubting themselves. They feel like they're stuck, that they will be always broken, they're unfixable. For someone like that, like a message of hope or truth, three truths that you come to believe about healing, like a big message for the people who don't feel hopeful.
hmm First thing, you know more about yourself than anyone else. You are the one that sits with you every day, that, functions every day. And within that same thing, you have survived many things. If it's big or small, I'm not into the trauma Olympics. I am someone that goes, okay, with that was that big for you, then that was big. There is no way. Two, you deserve love. You should have love. It's not something that you have to do many things to do to get it. It is just something that is already yours. And it starts within you. It is cheesy, but self-love is so amazing. And it's hard to do because we live in a society where it's like, you should be focused on this thing, or what does your hair look like, or did you post a photo? It is within you. And last but not least, healing is not linear. Stop looking at the person next to you because it's not going to be the same thing. You can try it, right? And it might work for you, but also give yourself some fucking grace because living is hard. Every day is hard. Turning on the news and seeing what's going on because oftentimes it's not positive. They don't share all the positive things. You know, family is hard sometimes. Relationships are hard. Health is hard. Aging is hard. As I am learning all the time, it is hard. And so give yourself some grace and add an extra bonus. Tomorrow exists. Tomorrow exists. Take a break. Take a breath. Try it again tomorrow if it didn't work out the way you wanted it to today.
Very nice. You also mentioned needs earlier in our conversation. I wrote down in my notes needs, knowing what you need, right? That's part of this healing journey, knowing what you need instead of seeing what other people are doing and just following the next trend, but really tuning inwards and asking yourself, what is it that you need? I want you to speak about needs if possible. How did you learn what your needs were? What does your practice look like today? I'm sure you have a wider, bigger toolkit today than before, right? So speak to me about needs.
Actually, my toolkit is shrank because
Yeah.
because here's the thing. When you try all the things, I don't want you to feel like I'm shaming you. I'm just going to say, be mindful of all the things because I've done yoga, I've done Pilates, I've done this, I've done that. And then I was like, I actually don't like any of these things. Right? Like, so this is where I will say, what brings you joy? On my own podcast, Trauma Queen, I had my friend on, Thea Monier, who really teaches about joy in her practice. And oftentimes, you get so wrapped up, you don't think you deserve joy. Like you don't know what makes you happy. That was really helpful. That was a part of my navigation of like, what do I actually enjoy? You get so wrapped up in the hard things that you're like, maybe I don't deserve happiness or maybe I don't have time for it. You do. You need it. What brings you joy? And those can be attached to the things that you need. What brings me joy? Massages. And I need those because I also hold a lot of tension in my body from the work that I do, from traveling all the time and my own shit. Like it's just real life. So I needed that. I need to go outside because vitamin D is important and so is fresh air and sunlight. You know, I need to ask for help because I can't do everything myself. And a lot of survivors don't want to bother people. They just kind of like, I can get it done. Ask for help. I needed to teach people how to show up for me. Here's a tool. I'm going to drop off one of my favorite tools. Teaching people how to show up for me. People go, wait, I didn't know I could do that. Yeah, you can. People want to show up and help you and take care of you, especially your friends and your family. You hear them say, I'm here for you. They must not feel like they have to say that because people don't just say things all the time. Well, sometimes they do, right? But, people say that and they don't know what to do. They're like, I'm here for you. I want to be here. You can teach them. Hey, this is how I did it. And I will tell you first, the traumatic way it led me to it. So I was 2019. I was moving into my best friend's house. I was, moving from one place to another. So I was moving slowly. And I got in my car from her house to go back to where I was living at the time. And I got in my car and I was having phone calls. It was like my mom was calling, my manager at the time, and a Venmo request went off. So a little money. And I said, I'm going to the money first. Everyone else can wait. And I got there, and what was waiting for me was a Venmo request from my rapist. It was the year he raped me for 25 cents. That is a test. No matter how far you are in life, it is startling. You start to panic. You worry about your safety and all these things. But because I knew myself and I had been therapized for quite some time at this point, I knew I had 30 minutes before I needed to be somewhere that really felt, you know? So I drove back to the other side of town and I went into my grounding activities. So you can be grounded by any of your five senses, and you can also be triggered by any of your five senses. So it was a visual thing. I needed something else to switch it up. So I got to the park. It's a beautiful park with a lake. So I'm looking at the lake. Let's change up the visual. I can see children playing. I can hear kids playing, not working. I took my shoes off. I get in the grass, physically trying to ground myself. It's not working. I get some elote. It's not working. So I don't live far. I get home and I text my people, hey, this is what happened. I will text you with the kind of support that I need. And this is where this came from on how to teach people how to show up for me. Every person in your life shows up for you in a way that you like in a different way, right? Like this, you might have someone that can pick out all the best foods, knows everything you like. You might have someone that knows your favorite plays or movies or music. That's that person. You know someone that will show up at the drop of a dime, whatever that is. You reach out to them and say, hey, you're really good at showing up for me in picking food. Would you be okay being my person? When I tell you, people get so excited. You want me to be your person? Oh my God, what? So if they say yes, you now create a safe word. Let's say our safe word, Anna, is blue. So if I text you the word blue, and you know, because we've already had a conversation, blue for us means send me my favorite playlist or send me my favorite song. Or maybe we were like, if I text you blue green, you call me and you play me a certain song. I have just now giving you a directive on how to show up for me. So you're like, yes, I got that one. So we're helping each other because we help each other by living and showing up and caring for each other. That's so healthy. And also, I'm now getting help in the ways that actually feel good for me versus some people just are like, well, here's what I saw in Law and Order. Here's what I saw on TikTok that you might need. And it's like, I hate all this. Now I'm frustrated. Now I'm extra stressed. We can teach people how to love us in that way. And they want to receive it. So now my friends are like, yeah, girl, I love this. If I text my best friend Yellow, she knows what do we do. So please put that into practice. And that is what helped me was utilizing the people around me and going, okay, maybe I can't do everything myself, which is also annoying because I want to be able to do everything myself. But I think there's the truth in that is I want to do everything myself because I didn't trust people. I didn't trust that people would show up for me the way that I needed. I didn't trust that they would take care of me. But people can't do that if you don't allow them the time to actually try.
This is great. I'm loving this. Just by creating that practice is an exercise of healing for you to, have a conversation with someone and elicit their support as your SOS person and come up with a word. And that already is you're exercising choice, freedom, autonomy. You're taking charge of your own healing. You're not stuck or paralyzed or a victim, right? And you're eliciting that help. And, it also what I'm hearing, you need to know what is it that you need, right? You get clear on what's going to help you and, regulate your nervous system or whatever. Like you're doing so much already healing work. Like you need to know what is it that you need. And then next step is you're eliciting someone's help. And the third is you are really putting into practice. That's like amazing.
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't know what you need, what don't you want to do?
Yeah.
Right. Because again, it's like the joy. Sometimes my brain feels so overwhelmed to like pick a meal. I don't know about you. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I just can't. And then I spiral. If I could just text someone, can you just pick something? That allows my brain to go, oh, thank goodness, we were stressing over that. It's again going back to the joy. Picking food for me sometimes brings me joy. In that moment, it's forcing me to spiral. So it's no longer bringing me joy. I'm going to release and give it to someone else.
Yeah, it's like community healing. It's kind of like
Yes.
you're not healing in isolation, right? You are healing in community. Well, not everyone is going to have a person for, all sorts of things. One for playlist, one for this, one for that. But are you a person for someone in your circle?
I am the person. I am the person, but for many people, I do think that I am a lot of people's people or person, however you want to look at it. Yeah, I do think I'm that person. And I think that my friends also utilize me when they need to, and they know that it's not a burden, which I think is also helpful for me to show up for people. Like we often feel like asking for help is such a burden. I grew up, one, being told to never trust a man and that never depend on a man. You can figure it out. And if not, what are we doing? And so that, a lot of us are taught that, like, you focus on this, do this. Or some people are taught men will make you get through everything. That's find a partner. You have to be married and do all these things. And it's like, do I? It's crazy. And so it's like seeking what feels good for you. And it is trial and error. Like it's not a fail. And I think that a lot of people put this on the thing. Well, I tried it, it didn't work. I'm a failure. No, it just didn't fit what you needed. And that's okay. There's more. There's so many things in this world that work for some people and don't work for others. But you also have to sit with it long enough to see if it actually works. If you're trying something new every 2 weeks, I promise you, you won't know what will work for you. You might get that one excitement like, oh, I saw something, I'm going to stay. Or what about this? It's not going to work if you're constantly hopping around.
You said your mom. So who do you call your mom today?
My grandmother, my mother's mother.
Oh, your mother's mother. Is she the one who raised you after your mom?
She and my grandfather, who he just passed away last year from prostate cancer. And she actually just called me right before this. I have to call her back. It's like having an elderly child.
Mm.
But it has been such a gift, to be raised in a home that also was carrying their own trauma, right? Like they lost my mother, they lost their daughter and their sister. And then they had to see me growing up. And so I think it's also one of those things. It's like the reminders that trauma is all around us and we just navigate it differently.
How did you see them deal and overcome with their pain, with their trauma? You didn't see?
Mm-mm.
Oh, wow.
They're masked people. And you know what happens when I get older? I force people to share their stories. And no, no, and not in a creepy way, but I had many conversations with my grandmother now, who I call my mom. And she goes, you have helped me. You've shown me that I can live this way. Like I can let my guards down. Like she doesn't want to have too many emotions. And I'm like, emotions are normal. You're allowed to cry. And it could also be a generational thing. She's 82. Right. And so I think that we are also healing our community by showing them that you don't always have to be so hard. Oftentimes we've been hard to survive, but you can be flexible with it and you can use others around you to fill in those gaps where you soften a little bit. Soften or being soft isn't being vulnerable. It's existing in ways that we should be allowed to.
So you are able to have conversations with your grandma now about the work that you do about healing, emotions and trauma and all of those things?
Sometimes. Yes, sometimes. Sometimes she's like, I don't want to hear this. And I'm like, okay. Or I slip her books. I've been doing that for many years. I'm like, here's this book just for you. Well, I don't like to read. And I'm like, okay. But then she'll always come back. So I read that book you left. And I'm like, yes.
So do you think it hindered your connection, your relationship with her?
No, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, so that's what I want to hear. Yeah. Do you think, I mean, she's 82, you said. Do you think she missed an opportunity for healing or like,
I don't. I think that she is a woman that now has lost two daughters, her husband, all of her siblings, both her parents and step parents. She's one of the strongest people I've ever seen to be able to, and breast cancer twice. She's one of the strongest women that I know that maybe just didn't have the time to sit down and be soft. She's on dialysis at night. And so that's another vulnerable thing. I think she has done her best with what she knew. Again, a different generation in a different location. And I think that she is continuously learning how to show up for herself because now everyone, not everyone's gone. There's my two aunts and myself and my cousins, but I think that as she gets older, vulnerability changes, softening changes, feeling like you can soften. I think that just changes. And I do think that she has had to be hard for safety in existence. And I think that a lot of people do, especially marginalized folks, women of color, Black women. I think that is something that we have had to navigate through. And so, no, I don't think that she missed out. I think that she's still in it. I think she's still learning every day. And I think she will continue to learn about herself because she feels like maybe she's allowed to more. She chooses herself more at 82 that she did in her 40s.
What one message, if there is any, you would love to give her or say to her before she leaves this world? Something vulnerable that maybe it's in your heart, you wish you could have said to her, or if there is something like that, maybe there isn't.
I try to not wait. So there isn't anything that I would wait to say to her. I say things to her all the time. I am in awe of you. Sometimes I'm like, I am confused by you. How did you get here? Give me your steps. That sounds wild. But oftentimes I am in awe of you. And also the remembrance. I think my goal here is to allow her to remember that she is allowed these things. And so those are the conversations we have. Like, you're allowed to have feelings, girl. That's literally how I'm like, you can have feelings, girl. You're allowed to cry. It doesn't make you weak. Here's some tissues. It's okay. It means those ducats work. Look at those eye ducats working. Look at you. You're allowed. But yeah, I don't want to wait to anyone's funeral or, putting it on a casket or their deathbed to say these things. Even when my dad was dying last year, I would just sit with him and be like, and have conversations. Now, did he always love it? No. The last conversation that I had with him, it was just a conversation about life. And that I think was one of the best conversations. It was short. It was like, would you want to travel? You were in the Air Force. Here's these things. And the last thing I got to ask him was he scared? And he said, yes. And for me, it meant, oh no, I knew he knew that it was the end or coming to the end. But also it was like that level of vulnerability that I had never seen in that man. That was something else. Like these little moments of humbling and awareness and heart, I think, are the things that are needed for all of us. That will allow us to continue navigating through. So don't wait to say these things to people. Say them now. Write them a note. Write them a letter. Send them a text message. Send them a voice note. Call them. Send them an email. Why wait? I should have, because those shoulda, coulda, wouldas are silly. You don't have to. You can do it now.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I am so touched by your story, by all of this that you shared, and about your parents, grandparents. This is very touching. Yeah, so many wonderful nuggets and lessons in what you're saying. I'm going to sit with that. And I'm so grateful that you were able to carve out this time to be present with me. I really enjoyed. Thank you so much, Jimanekia.
Thank you for having me. This is my first talk of the morning. I love this. I love a good warm intro. And then I'll go shower and continue doing more things. But this was really good. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you enjoyed it. What was your main takeaway from this episode? What resonated with you? I would love to hear from you. I always welcome your feedback, comments, and questions. Go to authenticparenting.com/contact and send me a voicemail or an email. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to help us keep the show going, please consider making a donation. Every little bit helps. Also, don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. It really makes a difference and helps others discover our community. And of course, be sure to follow us so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me. To make a donation today, go to authenticparenting.com/support. The suggested amounts are listed on that page as well. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. I am Anna Sewell. Thank you so much for listening.